Sometimes dead is better, sometimes dogs are better. Yes, in this video, I'm gonna be explaining who dies in the new Pet Sematary film and what happens around those deaths. What leads to those deaths? All that'll be explained coming up. What's up, guys? J.Mark Swartzentruber here.
This channel, it's a comedy channel for movie fans. So if you love movies and you love to laugh, consider subscribing.
Well, Pet Sematary 2019 starts out with Dr. Lewis, his wife Rachel, and then their young kids Ellie and their toddler Gage. Movie starts out with them moving from Boston to Maine to get a quieter and simpler life. Now, while Ellie, their daughter, is exploring the property, she finds a local landmark on their property, a pet cemetery, where the locals bring their dead animals. While she's there, she meets their nice neighbor, Judd, but she becomes pretty, disturbed by the idea of dead animals. She's young, she doesn't really understand the concept of dying yet. So that night, she asks her mom and dad about what their views are on death, like what's gonna happen after someone dies, after a pet dies. Her mom basically implies that there's an afterlife. Dad is a doctor, and he's very skeptical, and he's like, no, basically there's not. Now, I'm curious, do you think this film's gonna change the doctor's mind on death? Because I sure do. And then while Rachel is unpacking in their house, she comes across an old picture of her sister, but is very disturbed by it. And we don't know why yet. And then while Lewis is settling into his peaceful new job, working as a doctor at a college campus, pretty much dead student is wheeled in that's been hit by a car. It's really nasty because he's almost dead, just blood everywhere. And Lewis tries to save him, and he doesn't save him. Pet Sematary deaths. This is death. That's death. That is where I put death. First death, college student. Should have looked both ways before he crossed the street. But then, while he's alone in the room with the dead student, the student sets up something about you're the barrier and freaks him out. And then it's a vision. And then while their cat Church is settling in, he gets hit by a truck. Church is the second death. Church, the cat. But who really cares? Church has 9 lives anyways. He's a cat. Judd, their neighbor, shows Lewis hey, I'll help you bury the cat, but we have to do it tonight. That night, Judd leads Lewis deep behind the pet cemetery, over the river and through the woods, but they're not going to Grandma's house. They go up on a mountain that apparently he has on his property. It's there's lightning and blah, blah, blah. Why he thinks this is a good idea to bury his cat there, I really don't know. Judd says, bury your cat here, and Lewis is you sure this is the only thing we're doing here? And he's yeah, we're just burying your cat. That's all we're doing. And then that same night, Lewis tells his wife that Church has been hit by a truck, and he's hey, we need to tell Ellie about this. We need to talk to her more about death. His wife is still uncomfortable with the idea of death, and they go back and forth. Rachel ends up telling Lewis why she's uncomfortable with death. It's because when she was younger, her sister had an incredibly awful spinal disease, and her parents left her alone with her most of the time, and she had to take care of her, and she was scared of her because she just looked horrific, and her sister acted horrific, let me tell you. But she was told to actually walk her sister's food up to her room because she couldn't even leave her bed. Instead of walking her food up to her room, she used their old dumbwaiter that doesn't really work, and so it didn't take the dumbwaiter didn't take the food all the way up to her sister's room. We hear her sister crawling across the floor, and she gets into the dumbwaiter shaft thinking the dumbwaiter is there, and she crashes down, falls down the shaft, and dies. Rachel's hunchback sister. Third death. Zelda, I think is her name. Who cares? Rachel's sister, the hunchback. I know we're all sad she died, but really, she should have thought twice before jumping in the dumbwaiter like it was an elevator. I mean, come on. Rachel feels responsible for her sister's death and is still haunted by that memory. And so that's why death makes her uncomfortable. Lewis, seemingly unfazed by this, is oh, okay. I mean, he understands what she's saying, but is way not taken aback by this, the craziest story anyone's ever heard. Ever. And then the next morning, Lewis and Rachel go to tell Ellie that Church ran away. Ellie's confused because she's I literally just saw Church this morning. And Church is alive. He came back to life. He resurrected. It's a miracle. And then Lewis confronts Judd. Dude, my cat is alive and over at my house right now. And Judd ends up explaining, knew what was gonna happen, but he just wanted his neighbor's family to be okay. Now here's the thing, Church may be alive, but he is not the same, okay? He attacks Ellie, attacks Lewis, Gage, he gets in his crib at one point, Gage is crying, and so Lewis is a loving father, is get the heck out of here. He even tries to put him down, but he can't do it. And so he takes Church miles away and just turns him loose. We're like, okay, good. This is basically the end of the movie. This is good. Church is gone. Everything is trending upwards from here. Now, here's the thing. Rachel is still haunted, like I said, by the thoughts of what happened to her sister, seemingly like physically haunted by her sister. She's like freaking out. And so Lewis tries to salvage the situation. And so he's like, hey, why don't we invite like our friends and family over from Boston to our new house for Ellie's birthday party. And during the birthday party, Lewis is playing a game of tag with his kids. He's blindfolded. All the kids scatter. Ellie sees Church returning, like coming back home on the road. And so she runs out into the road to reunite with Church. Her little brother Gage also runs out, but he's like farther away. And so the dad sees Gage and runs out towards Gage to save him because there's a truck, a semi-truck literally barreling down the street, driven by a distracted driver. Lewis saves Gage in time. Right as the trucker swerves his truck, his trailer unhooks, slides down the road, and kills Ellie. Ellie, your cat was important, but you should have looked both ways before you crossed the street. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I said it. Overcome with grief, and after the funeral, Rachel gets Gage and she leaves for a few days to go be with her parents. So Lewis is home alone, which guys being home alone, you get into some stuff. And that night he drugs Judd so he can't talk him out of this idea. And Lewis drives to the cemetery where his daughter is buried, and he digs her up and takes her to the pet cemetery. And that same night, just like Church did, Ellie comes back, but like Church, she's not the same. She's super creepy. She can still like talk, but she is not the same at all. She's like all like dirty and is like breaking stuff in the house, like evil towards her like father. And he's trying to salvage the situation, like, kind of like, what did I do? I have to make this work. Now Rachel's been trying to call Lewis. She can't get a hold of him, and so she grabs Gage and drives back home the next day and surprises him. And then Rachel is understandably shocked when she sees her daughter. She didn't know any of this was going on while she was gone, and so she is just beside herself, tries to get away from her, takes Gage upstairs. And while all this is going on, Ellie goes over to Judd's house. Judd has come to and realizes what happened, and so he goes into his house to get a gun. Ellie slashes his Achilles heel, so he falls down some stairs, and he is stabbed a lot by Ellie, so he dies. So yeah, Judd is definitely dead. Judd, why'd you have to drop the gun? While Lewis goes over to check on Judd, Ellie goes back over to the other house and she attacks Rachel and Gage, and Rachel's able to like lower Gage out of like a window. Luckily, Lewis gets back to save Gage, but Ellie stabs her mom, Rachel, several times and kills her.
So yeah, Rachel is stabbed.
Rachel died. What to say? I mean, you should have been watching your daughter at the birthday party. I mean, I'm sorry, I said it. And then Lewis is knocked out by Ellie, and so Ellie takes her mom to the pet cemetery. When Lewis comes to, he goes into the woods to try and find his wife, and Ellie attacks him. He eventually realizes, this isn't really my daughter, this is like a zombie, and he tries to kill Ellie and is stabbed by his zombie wife and killed. Lewis, dead. Lewis, look behind you, bro. And so his zombie wife and his zombie daughter drag him into the pet cemetery. And then cut to a shot of their house on fire, and Gage is in the car waiting where his dad put him. And then we see the rest of Gage's zombie family walking towards the car. The zombie cat jumps onto the car, and zombie Lewis like goes around to the door to like open the door. The door unlocks, and that's how the movie ends. Look at that penmanship. Probably Gage. Gage, you were a victim. You didn't deserve this. So how many people died in the end? Well, it's kind of complicated. A college student died. Church came back to life.
Rachel's hunchback sister did not. So the student did not. Ellie came back to life. Judd's heel did not come back to life. Rachel came back to life. Lewis came back to life. And Gage.
In the end, how many deaths did we really have? I mean, initially it was 8, but then like 6 of them came back to life. We only had 2 deaths. This movie sucked. So anyways, if you like this video, comment below what was your favorite part of the movie.